Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey,
It's me, Daniel,
and this is Ben
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. Well, we're back off the high of Thor Love and Thunder to give you the spoiler episode for the last episode of Ms. Marvel and to give our thoughts on the season as a whole.
And of course, to give it a rating at the very end. You know what you're here for. This is our final episode of Ms. Marvel. That's what we're doing today.
Excellent
Good stuff.
This episode, I'm surprised by my own notes. This episode with Agent Devers at the Circle Q. She's obviously is like, yeah, we need Kamran now. She doesn't know his name, but she's after Kamran for sure.
She's after someone. Like, she's just bloodthirsty.
This is her like honing on this. This
Yes.
is the guy. It's
Yeah.
Kamran, like, because they've got him on.
Because the camera
surveillance
from the drone, right? Yeah.
And she has her slick comment about this is the problem when the wrong type of people get power.
Mhm.
I thought it was interesting that her coworker checked her, and I'm like, I don't really like the whole, oh, she's just a bad apple, but maybe they're not saying that because it's like the whole system is bad.
Yes.
Not just Devers. Like, it doesn't matter how many people within that system check her. They're still carrying out these things.
I mean,
they show you. So it's not like, it just feels like I wasn't really there for that. I thought it was a weird thing to add, as if they weren't just going to go along with what she said anyway.
Yeah, it was entirely weird to me because, like, for later on in the episode, I'm really sure we're going to really get into this, but it's very clear that the show is repivoted to be like, oh no, we're just going to paint her as the villain. It's just one bad apple amongst a whole DODC.
It's not clear to me that
law.
that's what they're doing. I think it
feels clear to me. Well, we'll talk about that later on, but it feels clear to me that's what they're doing. It's just her.
She's a sacrificial lamb, but it's not like they were like, oh, we need to change our ways. That's why I'm saying it's not clear. That's a thing that we see all the time. That one person,
yes,
so they can keep doing what they were going to do anyway.
I understand. However, in this scenario, like, yeah, I get what you're saying, but in this scenario, like, the guy made the right call. He was like, no, like, pull out. And then she just straight up didn't.
I mean, she didn't, and everyone followed her. That's why I'm saying it's not one bad apple. It's not like everyone was like, oh, we shouldn't do this.
But I mean, she was abusing the chain of command in that scenario. Like, she didn't.
I think that's more on you playing into it than actually seeing.
Really?
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
They're more than willing to, and they're more than like. I absolutely get that point.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, in this show, I think they're more interested in telling us that she's the bad apple.
Yeah, and I disagree. That's
fair enough.
I think that's not.
I
don't think
when we
that
get
the show that has
on,
the insights this show has is saying that. I think they're muddying the waters, but I don't think that that's ultimately where they land.
That's one of the biggest talking points I had about this part of this show is like, how did you feel about what they did with it? And obviously you didn't like it, because I was just like, I didn't like it either, because I thought they were committing more than you did to the fact that it was just her. You know what I mean?
I think,
but I see what you're saying. Like, the sacrificial lamb statement is a very, very good statement in that it's like, yeah, one person needs to be fired, but the system can remain. You know.
Mm-hmm. I think I know what you're talking about, but I think ultimately that is what we see with all sorts of law enforcement.
Yes.
Oh, we've got a problem. Oh yeah, sorry about the couple bad apples. Nothing.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, we're sorry, we can't be perfect. Nobody is.
Yeah.
I'm like,
so
what?
I think it's important to show that, but I just feel like there is a better way to show it, but I do think that it muddies the waters for sure. I just feel like I wouldn't say it's something that I feel is 100% what they're trying to say, which is she's just a bad person in it, because
Mm,
ultimately the ODC will remain to be a threat in this capacity.
yeah.
Just
And
just because Devers isn't there doesn't mean Cleary didn't earlier be like, no, okay, do it, but be
yeah.
like be respectful, but okay, yeah, do it. Like
Yeah, because he still wants to know
He's-
what she's all about. Because he was like, initially when watching the TikTok, he's like, I've never seen that power. We should bring her in. Like, it was the first response on his part. Like,
yeah,
she did nothing wrong. You can't bring someone in for questioning for saving someone's life. It's just like, nope. But they did their racial profiling thing. They're very clear in showing us that. So, I mean, I get what you're saying 100%, but that's why I feel like the show was weird, because I'm like, did they try to retcon it to make it so that we can only blame her? And you know what I mean? Because that's what it feels
Mhm.
like to me. And that's what's weird. But we got to move into the
yeah,
next scene for sure.
yeah. move on. Yeah, so then it's Kamran and Bruno in the subway system trying to like get to at least safety,
Mhm,
with
mhm.
Kamran's powers kind of just going wild.
Yeah,
And he's not doing well.
clearly not in control of them.
No.
So I mean, I like that they're showing us the extent of what his powers are different. I mean, like, I've never seen. Oh well, I mean, it stands to reason Kamala could throw like something like the same way he does at the drone, right? Because I've never seen her do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it stands to reason that she could if she's making like those platforms. And
Yeah, I think that's something we noticed
Mhm.
during the wedding fight,
Yep.
which is a lot of her use of the power is evasive and defensive,
yes,
which I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think that plays into it later in the show.
heavily.
But I think it's what's strong about the writing, that it
Mhm.
does feel consistent, that
Mhm.
all the training she did wasn't really around how to be offensive
Yes.
and have
It was-
projectiles like
Yeah.
so it doesn't mean she can't do it. It just means like that
Mhm.
was never really part of what she was trying to
Mhm.
accomplish.
Yeah, she was
So I
always
find
about
it-
platforming.
Yeah.
Like I go back to those training scenes where she was in her Miss Marvel cosplay with Bruno. She's literally just cosplaying on the rooftop. I mean,
Mhm.
not cosplaying. She's platforming with the discs and all that kind of stuff. And it pays off well in this episode.
And then the next scene is Kamala about to tell her parent or her family, sorry, so her father, her brother, and her sister-in-law
Mhm.
that she's Ms. Marvel, and
Nightlight.
everyone already knew. And so I thought that was, I like that the brother was like, it's obvious. She tells him, he tells me, and then I tell my wife. Like that, you should have
It's
known that was going to happen.
The Kamala
That's on
gossip
you.
train, the Khan gossip train. I really like that. And then the moment is like, it's like, Dad told you. He's like, well, no, he had you on speakerphone, and like that was the best things. I'm like, the amount of conversations I've overheard my boomer mom having on speakerphone is ridiculous. I shouldn't have been a part of that. You should not have done that.
Yeah.
It's very weird, but that was a great scene. How they were like, oh, they faked that reaction.
And they
That
all
was
have fun with her. But
good.
but then it becomes real when Yusuf is like, yeah, like we're really proud of you. He's all
Yeah.
in, but he's like, but that doesn't mean that you have to like go looking for trouble, right?
Yes.
And I like that Kamala has the point of like, well, you
Mhm.
didn't raise me to be on the sidelines, so yeah, I will be looking to help people.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was just a nice like wrapping up of that train of thought, which is yes,
right.
we love that you're like
Mhm.
doing this. Also, like we want you to be safe. Like it does even out. And
Yeah.
the mom, I've already said, like I think it's a sharp turn to like say up front to your daughter, I don't trust you, than to be leading the charge of we trust you, but it already happened. So
Yeah.
it's fine. She's there. Whether or not I think there was enough time is irrelevant. She is there. So I like that she doubles down on that. And it's obviously the reverse of the scene that I call up every time of her leading the charge of like, no, we trust her, right? Like this is great. So they're there. And I think in that moment emotionally it works, even if it doesn't really work across the whole season.
It is such a pivotal book ending to that first scene that you're talking about. I'm so glad you brought this up. And it's just the way that Kamala's mom is, and I could never remember her name, and I'm sorry about that. There's so many
Maniba.
names in this. Maniba. The way Maniba is in that scene, you could tell just the ability that she was able to process that generational trauma from her own mom allowed her to be so much lighter as a person. You know what I mean? It's that delivery of that. It was just like, you trust her, right? And then like to the dad, it's just like, this is wild. This is great. Because to me, it's like the idea of like, you trust her as a woman, right? And then the dad being, I don't know. But then the dad earlier being like, you trust her as a kid trying to do whatever. And then the mom's like, no, I don't. So it's the maturity in every relationship here is just so beautiful. It's such a beautiful, beautiful scene. And of course, the next scene is great.
Well, Nakia calls to kind of just
right
sets up the idea that
Circle Q blew up.
She doesn't call Kamala, but they just hand her the phone.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, have you seen Bruno? Like we gotta do something. Title cards then into Kamala like preparing to leave, and the mom bringing her outfit, which I feel
boom,
like
looks great, baby.
Again, lots of callbacks to earlier episodes, even probably just the first one. Just this time she gets the costume right. Actually incorporating what she knows about her daughter, and obviously like what she would like, but it isn't one-sided this time. So it's a nice marriage of what you talked about in terms of processing stuff and actually seeing her daughter for who she is, and then being able to piece together this amazing suit. Yeah,
I also like the idea that this is like the third garment that the mother Maniba is involved with, right? The first one was like the for the wedding outfit. The other one, both times she's been critical or something like that, but this time she's just like full on support. And the nice touch of it's in a milk toffee box too is just such a nice little thing, because guess what? That means so much more to me than if it was beautifully gift wrapped. The toffee box was such a cool callback. I love it. It's great.
It evokes the grandmother as well, so that she can be a part of the scene as well. Yeah, in that sense. So it is. Yeah, it's really nice that it's in the milk toffee box. Bruno and Kamran end up at the mosque, which, again, I'm glad that Nakia points out, like, sure, like you could do this, but you understand how this isn't actually safe. Yeah. And that it's Bruno that had that wise idea. She's like,
Bruno's white privilege.
Do you understand what's happening here?
Yeah, I love it. Bruno's white privilege fully preventing him from seeing the reality that's in front of him right there.
So they basically, from there, they're like, the plan is to go to the high school because it will be empty on a Saturday.
Love that explanation, by the way. That was the best explanation ever, when Nakia's like, it's the only place guaranteed. I'm like, yes, that's awesome.
And so basically we see again Nakia and the members of the mosque working together to protect Kamran and Bruno. They,
protect the community,
waste Deaver's time. Nakia has that moment where she's like, oh no, please don't hurt him, and then it's like, it's my boyfriend, don't tell my mom or whatever. I thought that was cool. And I like that guy is just honestly, your body cams are on, like, please, I need footage of this, that she said I'm her boyfriend. What a great day. I like
this is the best day ever.
Yeah.
Was he playing on a game? Like, he was playing on some sort of like Game Boy or something. Like, he was gaming while that was happening. I'm like, this is hilarious. She's setting this up to be like, no, don't go in there. I love that misdirect. It was great.
Then Bruno, I guess you see that they hid them, so it was very intentional, and not that we didn't already know that, but it was intentionally like they were hiding Bruno and Kamran. They made
behind
sure that
the shoes.
That they made sure that the agents were gone. And obviously they can hide them behind the shoes because they know that the agents are going to take their shoes off and put them anywhere. So that's a safe spot. And so they go, and that's where Kamala meets them in the alleyway. I liked the kind of emotional reunion between Kamala and Bruno. That just not the same, but similar to when Mary Jane was saying, like, in let's just say Spider-Man 1 from with Tobey Maguire, when she was
Mhm.
like, when I was up on that thing, I thought like, oh, I'm never gonna see Peter again. And I feel like that's kind of a version of what Kamala had. Not that she's like, and now we should date, but that she was like, I heard you were in trouble, and I was genuinely like upset about like that bothered me. That was a
Mhm.
problem. So I like their embrace, and that just the acknowledgement of how much Bruno means to her, and obviously
Yeah.
how much Kamala means to Bruno.
Yeah.
Um so that's a nice moment.
I love the disguise bit. By the
Oh,
way,
that they
just real
get the
quick, like
typical MCU
the MCU,
just,
like
baseball hat.
without the glasses though, but, but like that was great that they called that out, and like the fact that's haram and halal on the things, like just bold ass letters. I'm like, how is this a disguise? You're like really screaming out halal and haram. It's very attention seeking. It was just a really funny thing. But then them being like, "What are you wearing, Miss Marvel?"
Mhm.
I love her outfit.
I
It
like
looks so
their
good.
delivery in unison, even if it's 80 yard. I just liked
Mhm.
how like their voices came together, like to form just the one thought of
Yes.
what are we wearing? What are you wearing? Like I really
Yeah.
liked that delivery.
Yeah.
And then we see more of Kamran's powers going out of control, and
Mhm.
him feeling like I'm being crushed from the inside, and that's just like, geez,
Yeah.
that's rough.
That
Rough stuff.
sounds awful. Yeah.
Uh
Get the man some Pepto Bismol.
exactly. Kamala calls Kareem to be like, hey, can you help Kamran? Which I like that they were able to like weave in the events of Pakistan and more than just, and that's how she solved her problem with her mom. It's like
Yeah.
she has an expanded network, expanded family that she can
Mhm.
reach out to and get help from.
Mhm.
I do also appreciate that it is kind of like you're asking a lot of both Kamran and Kareem at this point. It's like, hey, can you
Yes.
take in your sworn enemy? And
Yeah.
hey, can you just trust that your sworn enemy won't hurt you?
Yeah.
So it's not like an easy fix that way. I do like that it's, I guess I'll just say it here, like part of Kamala's powers is just her being able to make connections and bring people together or bring people around her. I think is what this show is trying to highlight as well.
Yeah.
Like, she's not there at the beginning of the show, but I think throughout the episodes, it's showing that she can bring people together, sometimes by accident, but
Mhm.
other times she's purposefully putting
Yeah.
people together and making connections and forming community.
Yeah. Yeah. And heart of everything, it's such a great thing. So yeah, it is one of her. I don't say superpowers because I'm like, oh, it just gives her a great career in online marketing later on.
Yeah, then so they're at the high school, and this is the Nakia Kamala reunion,
Yes.
which I think is good as well, because it's right at the forefront of, well, why wouldn't you tell me that you're a superhero? And we've already been saying this, like, obviously Nakia doesn't like superheroes, so
yes,
I feel like everyone said what they needed to say in this moment of, how could I say that if I know you don't like superheroes? And you would, I know she doesn't say it fully, but I feel like that's the complete thought was, I messed up, yes, but also like I wasn't going to.
This is why.
I didn't want to. I like that she starts to be like, you wouldn't have, in quotation marks, you wouldn't have treated me differently, but you would have.
Yeah.
I like that she stops herself and is just like, yeah, I messed up. I'm sorry. It's just, that's, she says what she needs to say. And I like that also, that it wasn't like a lingering thing for Nakia either. She just out front said it.
Yeah. It's,
I feel a way that you kept that from me.
Yeah, it was very, very mature, and the whole thing, and like that part pulled me out of it. I'm like, these are high school kids, and this is a very mature interaction, which I love to see, but I'm like,
I think they're very mature with each other.
They're very mature with each other.
We've seen a bunch of, I mean, you get pulled out, that's fair, but I feel like I was already in on that emotional maturity from them
Yes.
from before.
Yes.
I think because they're so emotionally mature, that's why it makes it even more interesting that Kamala didn't say something, trusting that their relationship would be able to fix or sustain that.
Yeah, it's one of those hard things, right? Because it's just like, how do you draw boundaries in this situation without communicating a vital piece that would be like the whole point of why you're drawing those boundaries around this piece of information, right? It's one thing to be like, okay, I have one friend that's a different religion that we don't see eye to eye on, and we don't talk about religion ever. Like, that's a boundary that's easy to do, but that's only if everyone has the knowledge of like, oh, this is why we don't talk about this.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a difficult situation. I can fully understand why she would withhold, and I would understand why Nakia would be pissed off to hell that she would withhold. It's a very difficult situation there, and I think it gets mirrored. There's a throwback to it later on, I feel, right? Like, I'll talk about it later, but there is a throwback to it later on, I feel, with another character.
Then Zoe shows up. I think they explained it pretty well. She uses the drama room to do her TikToks. Like, so
I mean, it's good enough explanation to me.
And I think also she would be like, yeah, and no one comes here on Saturdays, so I'm not going to get interrupted. This is, I think that's good. But I do think we should have had more time with her, not within 6 episodes. I think there should have just been more episodes. But I think we already were talking about how she isn't the like villain that they made her out to be in the trailer.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm not saying I've seen a bunch of people like, well, why is she, this is a turn. I think the show says it at one point that, hey, like, that's not you. But I think that's not you was more like, you're not really someone to help. You kind of just do your own thing.
Yeah.
And not like, oh, you're the bad guy, why are you helping the good guy? I think they were just like,
correct.
Oh, like, you're a part of this. And she said, yeah, you saved my life, which is what I was talking about, which I liked her interrogation scene that she showed, that like,
yes,
she knew who it was. It was just, she didn't want to give that information to them because she understands what would happen.
She ain't no snitch. And that's what I like.
Not a snitch, but also as I mean, it's a bit much, but when she says like, as an ally, I think she genuinely was like,
yes,
I understand what it's like, what it would be for me, a white girl, to be like, oh yeah, it's this.
Yeah.
Like, I like that she just kept saying, no, I don't know what you're I don't know. I don't remember. And she wouldn't give them even, oh, it was Latina or it was
right.
Like, she's like, no, I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah. She knew exactly what every one of her decisions in that interrogation scene would have led to. And it's so incredibly beautiful to see that happen. You know, even though I probably know it doesn't happen as much as like this, it's just, it's nice to live in that fantasy world. So, it's nice to live in that fantasy, right? Where it's like, oh, okay, you actually are aware of the weight of your words in this situation and you're not weaponizing them.
So
awesome.
I mean, great. We'll probably get into it later. Or we can just discuss it now. I think
let's do it. We're tiptoeing around it.
I got it wrong. I thought she had feelings for Kamala, but it seems like she has feelings for Nakia. I know in the comics that is just what happens, that they have feelings for each other.
Yep.
But that first interaction they have, where I was like, she wasn't mean to them. She even said, hey, I like your whatever. And it wasn't like Mean Girls, where it was like, oh, what a great dress. It was genuine. So when she said it to Kamala, I was kind of like, oh, so she clearly has a thing for Kamala, but doesn't want to like get into it. But it was more like she wanted to ingratiate herself to that group, I think.
And
so that's why I was like, oh, she's just in on this. Like, she's in on being with these people in particular.
Totally.
And obviously the wording she uses of, I think she should be able to come out on her own terms and at her own pace.
Yeah. Like, tell the world at her own, like, on her own terms.
Which is, I think that the idea is that, like the comics, it's she's going to have feelings for Nakia.
It's definitely leaning into that. The interesting thing about that scene, I really want to point out really, really quickly, Stacy, who is of course not she's very good at picking up on these kind of things. She was like, is there a gay vibe in that scene? I was like, how did you pick that up? apparently the acting reflected that
Yeah.
heavily.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like,
100%.
this is fantastic. I'm like, for someone to be able to recognize that, see that, and not, because I was not able to see that.
oh,
I was
wow.
not.
I thought for sure you would have seen that.
No, I was able to see the wording she chose and read into what she did at the DODC and think that, oh, she's just woke. You know what I mean? But like, so the thing with Nakia being like, this is not like you, I'm like, I agree with you 100%. It's not that she's vindictive, it's that she appears to be so self-involved, because
Mhm.
everything they say about her was the factual things, like, oh, she has X amount of followers, she has this, she has this, she has, nothing is about her. It's not about her personality, right? And to a certain degree, I get it. When you're in high school and you have that front, you kind of have to keep the front going, right? So you never really allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to reach everyone, especially if you're surrounded by your posse. In this situation, she's at the school making her own TikTok all by herself, and there's her crush. So yeah, she's vulnerable, she's talking real. I'm like, this is awesome, everything about it. So yeah, total. I'm loving to see, hoping to see where that goes. But you know, for I just want to point out, for someone that wasn't even familiar with the source material, looking at this, she was like, is there a gay vibe going on?
Mhm.
Really cool stuff. I loved it.
Yeah, I think it was well acted. I
Yep.
should say. I think there was clear wording used
Mhm.
that evokes it, but yes, the way it's acted also, as Stacy pointed out,
Mhm.
makes it clear that this isn't just a conversation between two platonic people. Well,
Mhm.
I get the sense that Nakia will probably have those feelings back, but I think Zoe for sure
Mhm.
has feelings. So yeah, that wasn't
Zoe for
just
sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Whether
Well, I'm
or
saying
not,
based on the comics, not
right.
based on what I saw. I'm
Oh,
saying
I
that's
see.
what they're.
So
Right.
in the comics, does Nakia also reciprocate those feelings?
Yes, they have.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
I think-
wonderful. And like, I'm sure the interracialness like comes up within that, right? Like,
I haven't read the comics. I just know that.
I mean, there's a lot of stigma, but I
Yeah.
mean, like, yeah, for sure. I mean, that would be interesting if they explored that, whether or not we get a season 2 of this, right? But I mean, like,
Yeah.
these characters, these high school characters, believe it or not, for me, I've actually invested enough to be actually interested in them. Like, this show has done that very well.
Very well. I
Yeah.
think they've created some very likable characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, Zoe's there. Amir even shows up. I think he tries to just be like, "Yeah, I'm just here," but then he's like, "No, obviously, Mom sent me." Like,
Yeah, everything
Um,
about that was just like, okay, if Zoe was there, I'm just gonna accept that Amir is there, and like the greatest, like, yeah, I used to go to the school too, or like, yeah,
it's like, I know how to
yeah.
get in.
Yeah.
But I think it makes sense based on the conversation that
Yes.
Yusuf, Muniba, and Kamala had, that
I
there
agree.
would be an element of like,
Go check in. On
we
this.
won't stop her, but also go check. Go check.
Yeah,
in
go
on her.
check in. Yeah, go check in until she earns our trust to be like, oh yeah, she's with the Avengers now. She's good. You know what I mean?
Um,
I can see her parents doing that.
It
for
also
sure.
makes sense based on something Bruno says later,
Mm.
that Amir thought that maybe if Kamala had powers, maybe he has powers, that he would also be like up for going and seeing what happens.
Right.
We'll get into that later, but I think it makes
We
sense.
will.
I know it's just a way of like stacking the cast, but it's like it makes sense that someone would be like, I mean, my sister has powers, why wouldn't I? And
Yeah.
also that the parents would be like, go check on her.
Yeah, it's a very well planted seed in that little bit of dialogue. Like, it's so well planted, and then Bruna just brings it home later on. It's great.
Yeah. So then, as we talked about,
Mhm.
we can move on from this because there's a better part later. But
Mhm.
there is the conversation between Devers and Cleary where he's like,
Yep.
stand down, and she doesn't.
Yep.
Um,
And he gives all the reasons too. It's like, this is a high school, this is very public, and you're chasing down kids.
Yeah.
Like those are not that I need to justify my decision as your superior, but those are 3 very valid reasons why you should not be doing this whatsoever.
so then Kamala
And
basically
she
tells Bruno that. Sorry, not basically. She tells Bruno
Yeah.
straight up, yeah, Najma died, and they decide they're not going to tell Kamran, which obviously leads to trouble. But it's kind of the show showing like, yeah, you need to just share the information.
you
have all the
can't
walls
withhold.
up.
But in
And I
that
like
scenario,
I like that she doesn't have a secret identity to her family or friends because, like, again, the show is all about like share yourself with people, like
Yes.
open yourself up to that. And so, yeah, they decide. Interesting. Zoom is getting worse. Okay.
yep, we're that blip was based on Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah. So they decide not to tell Cameron, and then that's when kind of things start. The DODC breaches the school.
Yep. And then we get our Home Alone moment,
Yes,
which I was
which I always
really hoping for. I was so hoping for the Home Alone moment, and I got it, and I'm happy.
I really like that. So yeah, they distract the DODC inside the school, and then they basically use Zoe's white privilege to make sure everyone is paying attention to what's happening.
Correct.
And rallying the community around the school to like actually have eyes on what's happening, because everyone shares her TikTok. Like she goes, I think they say go live. I don't use TikTok, so I'm assuming that's just the concept, is that she went live instead of just posting a video. And in real time, people start showing up, so that now there's an audience, and it's everything Cleary was trying to warn Devers about, which is don't fuck this up.
You're gonna make this into a PR disaster piece.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what she does. Exactly what she does, because everyone's live streaming this, because that's what's gonna happen no matter what.
So these got this tension. So then there's a point where Kamran and Kamala are together, and they're clearly about to kiss. And Bruno walks in on it, and like he's done many times, he's just like, oh, sure.
But this time he didn't try to get in the way. This time he's like,
no, I wasn't saying he tried. Like what I meant to say was he sees that he is something that he cares about is being thrown away. Like I'm talking about like when she didn't have the whatever he made for her, the glove, was it power gloves or whatever? I can't remember what he made for her. He's just kind of like, okay, and then moves on, and it's more important that this gets done right than it is for him to act shitty about it in that moment. He just keeps going. He does the distraction for the DOC, gets knocked out even. He didn't stop. He didn't let that stop him, which was cool to see.
Really, really good friend move there. Stuck to the plan and all that kind of stuff for sure. He is, like, by this point he's accepted the fact that he's got to move on, right? He's already accepted Caltech, all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about like the pivotal thing he does later on, but like obviously he's moved on. He's like, yeah, okay, well, I've decided not to be here. My heart's been broken already. I will never get out of the friend zone. All right, so I don't know if he's
saying all that. I think he's just like, it would be best for me to go to just do this Caltech thing. Yes. I don't know if he's thinking he'll never get out of the friend zone, but at least he knows right now is not the time to hold on to this.
Right. But I just feel like a lot of his decision, at least initially with the counselor, the guidance counselor, was like, hey, I'm not sure because I'm in love with someone. It's just like, in that enough was able to challenge it. So for him to be like, no, I'm gonna go, he obviously had to move on from the idea, the friend zone, or just like, or maybe this is a long play where it's like, maybe I'll make tons of money in Caltech and then she'll see. I don't know. Don't do that, people. Just
I think he's like, I'm going to work on myself right now because this is obviously not a thing now.
I hope that's what he is, but also at the same time,
I don't know why
go
you
to
wouldn't.
Caltech.
Like he's clearly shown how mature he is, like throughout these things. I don't know that it's also fair to be like, oh, I don't know. I think he's just gonna spitefully go to Caltech and cut that part off.
It's definitely not spiteful. I get no part of that from him in this episode. What I get is just he has moved on, and that's he's like, yeah, it's still a shock to see, because like you can move on from your ex and still not love seeing their Facebook posts with their new boyfriend, you know what I mean, or their new partner, and that's okay because it evokes emotion. But like for him, that was like, emotion over. I gotta take care of business right now, and that's finish the mission and distract and do whatever needs to be done. Good for him, Bruno.
So then basically they're on the move, Kamran
Mhm.
and Kamala, and
Mhm.
he guesses that, oh, you're setting me up with the red daggers, not setting up in terms of you're trying to screw me over, but he's just like, you understand how it's a lateral move to go from DODC to the red daggers for me in my perspective.
Mhm.
And she's kind of like, nah, it's fine, don't worry about it, it'll be good. And he's kind of like, wow, we'll see. Like, they've been
Well,
hunting my family for decades. I
Yeah,
don't really
you don't know my history. I mean,
Yeah.
which is very valid. So,
And
I
then
mean,
he
how that
kind of
whole plays out.
pushes.
Yeah.
He pushes like, what happened to my mom? Like, why isn't the play to like connect?
Why
me
isn't
with
my mom here to?
Yeah,
bring
like
me?
why?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
They fight an agent in a bathroom, and once again, Kamala's more defensive, blocking
Mhm.
Kamran's more aggressive attacks.
Yes.
So yeah, I think they had a version of what you were talking about of them having to fight throughout the episode, but it was never really full on fights. It was kind of just like him either like pushing back in a moment of her trying to stop him from doing something, or her trying to contain what he was doing.
Yeah, it was. That's all of the sense I got, because I mean, like, the way they're painting out her character was never going to be like, I have to beat him now. It was always going to be like, no, stop, please. Like,
and I didn't ever really think he was going to be like, I'm going to fight Kamala. They kind of planted the thing of like, hey, are you screwing me over? But I think he ultimately realized like she's not. She just doesn't know what she's doing. And like, she doesn't know what she's putting me in.
Yeah, the thing I thought was like, oh, maybe he's got like 2 light powers, right? Like from his mom from the previous one, and now from his own light from within himself. So now his body can't handle it. And I thought, oh, this is why Kamala has like the bangle to help hone the power or whatever, or to like whatever, But then I'm like, wait, none of the other clandestines had things like that to help hone their power. So it was very, very odd to me that it was played out this way. But at the same time, there was like, going back to that scene where they're in the guidance counselor's office and they're holding hands. I love the visual effect of how her power and his interacted, and it's smoothed out instead of being like the rough, jagged kind of crystalline feature it was. So I like the fact that she was able to balance that out temporarily. Was such a great visual, small little thing. I liked it.
Then Kamran, he's doing a lot of good inferring.
Yes,
he's like, my mom's dead, isn't she? Like, yeah, geez. And the powers, I think it's a mix of him lashing out and the powers not really being controlled. Like, I don't know if it's just one or the other. I think it's a mix. He's definitely angry, which is causing and I'm sure he actually does want the like violence of his powers to come out, but I think it's still not controlled properly. And that leads to a bit of a shoving thing with him and Kamala while he's about to kill an agent. So yeah, I think this is a good time for us to pause.
Yes, we should do that.
All right. Yeah, sorry about that. Zoom.
Some technical difficulties, but we're good. We're back.
We should be good now.
We were talking about the agents and their interaction.
Well, yeah, basically Kamala stops him from killing, and he heads outside, and this is like the big standoff with Devers. At this point, everyone can see as well what's going on, so I guess people just watch her shoot at a Pakistani kid who is actually 17, not like ageless like his other family members or community members, like the clandestine. He is actually just a 17-year-old. So yeah, everyone sees that, but also he kind of goes overboard with how he retaliates in terms of, I only say that because it would have ended up in a bunch of the people in the crowd dying if Kamala didn't step in and use her hands to save that, to save the crowd. And basically throughout this, you see them doing their versions of fighting off this threat. Kamala checking in with people, even on the DODC side, him just going for it and beating people up. I get that you're supposed to think like, oh, he's taking it too far, but I'm kind of like, look at how they're all geared up to take him out. Like I understand his
Yeah.
response to this.
I understand it too, but especially when you're like, hey, my mom just died.
Yeah.
Or just found out that information. But the one thing too is I will say that this scene plays off more of like, I don't know how to control this. I can't control
yeah.
it because it's
He
it's
has
playing off-
moments
yeah.
when he's doing like hand-to-hand combat and is
Yes.
using it to amplify where it seems like okay, he knows what he's doing, but
Mhm.
for the most part I agree with you. It does not look like he's actually in control of what's happening.
Yeah, and like the idea there of just like even like his powers were putting his friends at risk. You know, obviously
Mhm.
like he wasn't looking to hurt them. Like he
No.
wasn't in a blinded range where it's like, oh, I went blackout and I killed everyone. Like
No, he's
like some
trying
other
to
people
fight
did
the
in
bad.
other shows.
I'm gonna call them the bad guys. He is
Yeah.
trying to fight the bad guys, but
Yes.
there was gonna be a lot of collateral damage if there
Yeah.
wasn't Kamala there to
Mhm.
actually
Mhm.
bring things together, bring some form of cohesiveness to this
Yeah.
fight, and ultimately she puts them in not a cocoon, like in a dome. Basically, she blocks out all the outside noise so it could just be her and Kamran, and she gets through to him. And I think
Yeah.
that's a big deal. She got through to Kamran's mom. She
Yes.
got through to Kamran, Najma. She got through to Najma. She got through to Kamran, and he does decide to go meet up. We see in the follow up that he does actually go meet up with the Red Daggers, and he meets the connection that was in Jersey. So it's not like he just ran off and we're like, oh, we don't know. It's like no, she got
He
through.
followed through. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
followed through.
He followed through with it. And yeah, it was
So I like that.
I wish though that he didn't escape through the hole punched in the ground.
I saw people say that, and I was
really-
like, I feel like he can still make more holes himself. That was just like the initial.
Listen, I get it, but it's just I wish it was just a manhole cover instead. Like honestly, if it was just a manhole cover, it would have been
Yeah.
I would have been so much happier than the stupid punch. But like that bothered me. But I was like, whatever. I'll get over it. But I'm just saying like that was dumb. That was dumb. I
Yeah.
didn't like it.
That's fair.
It's not
Um,
a structurally sound hole either.
No.
You put a lot of faith in that to not collapse.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not. I think much like the show as a whole, it works a lot like Endgame and No Way Home for me. That emotionally it makes sense.
Mhm.
It might not hold up to further scrutiny. I think it's better than those two movies, not in terms of my enjoyment, but in terms of having a bit more solid logic internally. But I still think that overall, all three of these things that I mentioned that I really like work more on how emotionally captured you are by it and
Yeah.
less on the mechanics of it.
Yeah, like when you start looking through and going through with a fine comb for the movies that you mentioned. Yeah, you're right. You're like, wait, what?
Mhm.
There's certain things that are like, this is
And to be clear, those
Mhm.
I will get to what I think of Ms. Marvel in terms of a numeric value, but I
Mhm.
think these three things I'm saying I really like they're at the top for me
Yep.
in terms of Marvel stuff. So I'm not saying like these shitty things you got to turn your brain off. I'm
right,
saying
right.
there is stuff in all three of them where it's engaging and
Mhm.
more complex than people might give it credit for, but also some of them buckle under the ambition that they have.
Yes, yeah.
And
Some of them don't
not
stick the landing.
everything comes together if you think about it. And I'm not saying turn your brain off. Sure,
Yep.
people should think about it and interrogate it. But what I'm saying is I'm fine with those things because emotionally it made sense to me in all three cases, rather than other movies where it's kind of like I'm pulled out by the lack of logic and I don't really care about these characters. So
Yep.
yeah.
You're
mileage
right.
may
That
vary on that.
the emotional beats take you on a more consistent journey than the writing does in certain episodes. That is, but
Well, I'm saying specifically kind of because the writing is part of the emotional stuff.
Yes.
So
heavily. Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, the writing of certain characters, and that being
They
like,
just-
yeah,
they
don't look into the clandestines too much. Like that was
Yeah.
thin, but whatever.
I mean,
you know.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
The clandestines don't really come together for me.
Yeah.
Devers does not take this as a like, okay, I should just back down now. She's like, let's get them, and then the
Yeah.
crowd rallies around them. this was another point where I was like, the police are trying to save her. Yeah, right.
This is
But
the point that I was trying to
but
bring earlier.
the
I'm like,
show makes a point of showing that they don't actually do anything to stop anything. It is very symbolic that they step there
it's
because
performative. Yeah.
DODC walks right through them, and it's only that Auntie Ruby that actually puts up a fight. Other
Yeah.
people back her up, but it's Auntie Ruby that actually physically tries to stop them and verbally tries to stop them. The police were kind of just there.
Yeah.
As you said, it was performative.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that's where I'm like, I'm really feeling like everyone's recognition of, okay, we can do this as performative as like, no, we will stand up against you, but at the same time, we're not going to get an assault charge ourselves, or like, you know what I mean? Like, because people have been charged and beaten up by cops for way less than that and claiming for assault, right? The fact that she was like screaming, hitting them, even like she could have been knocked the fuck out immediately. And that's where I think everyone else is. But like, to the point, the law enforcement that was on their side doing that, being performative, that was just, yeah, that's where it was performative. And to me, I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, you're saying that police officers do protect citizens. No, they just get out of the way and let anything happen to them. That they recognize where their power
They'll
is and all
protect
that kind of stuff.
property.
They'll protect
Very
property.
rarely do they
They
actually
do
protect.
not protect people whatsoever. Is garbage. But like,
But yeah,
like that scene to me, it was just like, this is that's why I'm like, oh, they're really painting her out to be the
I
only
think
problem
they're
with
showing
this. And I
that she has
hated that.
ambition and she has the courage of her conviction, right? But
Mhm.
the other people, like the police, like the
Mhm.
actual New Jersey police, not the DODC,
Mhm.
standing there, they don't even look like they were going to try and do anything. They did it and
No.
they're like, oh, you call my bluff.
Yep.
So I don't think that's why I'm saying like there's enough there for me to believe that as much as Disney is willing to let this show say it,
Mhm.
that there's kind of an impotency to that stuff, right? That woman
Yep.
on her own can try and do what she wants, and she can have Cleary telling her, "Oh, stand down." That's like, this is gonna happen again. This isn't the last time something like this is gonna happen.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter that a man told her, like, and it's very interesting to show that she's one of the only females that gets a lot of time on that side of this. When they show the New Jersey police, it looks mostly all male and all white, and it looks uniform that way.
Mhm.
And the fact that it looks like they even move before DODC gets to them. Like they just get right out of the way. I don't think that ultimately what they're saying is she's the bad apple and everything would be fine if she wasn't there, because they're showing that like those police weren't going to protect those people. Like they were going to just let that happen.
They're definitely showing that.
If it's not Devers, it's someone else that's going to actively be like, let's just do this. But also look at how much support she had.
Yeah.
You think Cleary couldn't call other people and be like, what's going on there? Stop her. Like, no, you didn't see people like dropping off as if they were like, this is the wrong thing to be doing. Like they were 100% in on that. And that's the point, is that it is institutional. It's not, doesn't matter if you have good intentions going in, you're going to get swept up with the Devers or have to leave.
Well, I mean, intention in this case doesn't even matter if we're following the system that you described. Like it's a chain of command, and like nobody needs to communicate that this chain of command was broken. Everyone below me is a subordinate, and the way she was going about it obviously was like, hey, like I'm just gonna do my own thing and let the results speak for themselves, right? That's all she was concerned about.
The ends justify the means.
Yes, exactly, right? So she was going for that angle, and like to that point, like how aware were the other people? I'm not defending them. I'm certainly backing your point, but the idea of like, this is where I feel like the show really paints her out to be the only person that's the problem.
And that's why
because
I disagree, because you would, they've done it before. You would see other characters in that scene, seeing the audience, the crowd reactions, looking at her shoot on a teenager, like two teenagers at one point. You would, if you were trying to say she's the problem, you would show them at least look like, am I doing the right thing? They didn't.
I agree with that.
That's what I'm saying. At no point is anyone like, we're doing the wrong thing here.
Right. They're just following orders. They're just following
I'm
orders.
trying to get away from the idea that there's a chain of command. I'm saying it's all
Right.
shit, right? Like it's
Oh, it
they
is all
all are
shit.
there. They're all gun happy. They're ready to go and shoot their things.
Mhm.
Sure, they have to wait for her to say do it, but like they're
Yeah.
all like happy to do it.
Yeah, even in the scene, and like this is something I can't believe I didn't comment on, but like in the scene in the high school where they're doing the Home Alone like traps and all that kind of stuff, that first agent going up to it is like, "This is a bomb." First, I'm like, okay, well, why are 5 of you standing in close proximity of a blast range of a bomb without a blast shield or anything like that? Why is there no bomb squad called in? But even just the idea of like, okay, I'm going to shoot this thing as opposed to just walk right past it, even though I know it's a decoy. It's like you're right. They're gun trigger happy.
Yeah, I don't.
They're trigger
I
happy
don't.
as shit.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think that the show lands on she's the problem. I think everyone there is ready and willing.
Oh, I agree with you. I
And I
feel like
don't-
that's where the show's writing is really muddied up in this final thing. Is like I feel that they're trying to be like put it all on her, but I'm like, no, you're not doing the show itself is not doing a successful job. All it's showing us is that police, like to your point, will get out of the way, can't really do anything, will not protect their citizens. That people are too happy being like, hey, to follow a command that alleviates them of any responsibility of like, oh, I wasn't, I wanted to gun down someone today, but I got the command, so it's a part of my job. It's all of that is it's weird that they're painting it this way, because I feel like they're trying to make it, oh, it's just her, but everything you're saying is 100% true, which is why I'm like, why is the show saying 2 separate things right now?
And I'm saying it's not saying 2 separate things.
To me, it is. And that's
But how
what really
I mean,
confuses me.
you could feel like one. I just don't understand how what we've talked about has still led you on the side of that's what they're saying.
No, but I think that's what the show's writers are trying to do. They're still trying to alleviate it. Like I get
Oh,
that
no.
sense heavily.
Yeah, okay. I
that,
mean, that's
like,
fair. We could just
yeah.
disagree on that. I think.
Oh
that
yeah.
There's way too many signs. I think this is similar to the conversation we had
Mhm.
about Zoe
Yes.
knowing or not knowing who it was, and I think
And
I think you've once again kind of not really given the writers credit in terms of what they're trying to do within
Absolutely.
a Disney framework. But
yes.
I think it's muddied. That's as much as I agree with you, but
Mm-hmm.
I do think that ultimately they land on the side of this is a structural problem, not a Devers problem. I don't. At any point they could have shown someone like they knocked Bruno out. They show you how violent
Yep.
they were with the kids they knew weren't
Yep.
the person they were going after.
Mhm.
No one there is just following orders in those sense, because they could
Yep.
just easily be like, forget about these idiots. Let's go get Kamran. They
Yep.
took time out of time to exert their force over
Mhm.
people they knew weren't the problem.
Yes.
So again, nothing is showing me that the writers think only Devers is the problem.
Get that. And this is where I feel like, are they trying to put a lot of the scapegoat aspect of it, the sacrificial lamb, on her, and that's what's muddying it all up, right? In the sense where it's like, hey, she was the only one that was fired. What about the other people shooting at a teenager? You know what I mean? Like, what are the
Yeah.
laws in that scenario where it's like, what does the Geneva Accords dictate about enhanced persons and how
You mean
like,
Sokovia?
the Sokovia? How does the Sokovia Accord balance out the human rights aspect to enhance individuals? You know what I mean? Like, do they fall into that? It's those politics are really, really weird. But in this situation, they're not interested in dealing with that. They're just showing us like how cops will be and how law enforcement will be every single time. And it's weird that they're like, oh yeah, the cops will stand up against it but do nothing. It's saying multiple things to me that I think take away from ultimately what is the biggest landing point, is that law enforcement is all like this. The whole system's like this. It's all wanting to do the same thing, and they'll only call off one person and let the system survive. I completely agree, but like they're muddying it up so much by like, what are you trying to say? I feel like they're trying to say too much in that situation. And I'm like, no, it should be a lot simpler, that law enforcement is just crap in this
Nothing
scenario.
is simple like that, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know nothing is simple like that, but in this, that's why I'm mad, because it seems too simple that they would find one person to do it with. And I'm like,
We should move on, because
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
I've heard you say 2 opposing things now. So
oh, fair enough.
Yeah,
But I mean,
I don't want to like
I am
attacking. I
frustrated
understand.
about
Yeah,
it for
I
sure.
get it. I think we agree
Mhm.
to the extent that it's
Yeah.
uh
We're definitely agreeing
muddied
to
the
disagree
waters,
for
but
sure.
but I don't think we agree on anything else out of that.
Yep. Yep.
Um, basically, that all gets sorted out, and it cuts to the TikToks the people did about that moment.
I
And
love those TikToks. They're fun.
I really like that it leads into Kamala. Like you see that was Kamala watching that.
Mhm.
And unlike the first episode where she didn't want to look in the mirror properly, and she
Right.
tried to like cover herself up, she's able to look into the mirror now
Mhm.
confidently
Mhm.
because she sees that, in her words, the brown girl from New Jersey actually
Mhm.
did save the day. She
Yeah.
got to be herself, and we kind of talked about all the different ways she was herself.
Mhm.
She got to be
Also,
herself, save the
yeah.
day, and people
Mhm.
are happy about it. It's
Mhm.
not it's not the Nakia reaction she thought she was going to get.
Exactly. I also love how in this episode they're bringing together her daydreaming properties of how she thinks things through and the visualization there together with what's actually happening in reality, right? Because like in those first few episodes, she's always like, they're always making a point of like, that's the illustration to show that she's off in space and, fantasy land. But now she's like, I'm using that creative power in this scenario. And I really like that visual resemblance, especially when she's like, this is the plan. And we're drawing this thing out. That animation was a lot of fun. But yeah, it's those little visual cues I think are really, really great in this episode. And like, I think the writing really pulls together here too, except for the cop thing that we disagree on. But I like that she's getting those affirmations from the community that she's accepted and she's wanted. It's really, really great. I love it.
Then she has her talk with her dad on the rooftop, which I really liked. Oh, I
Yeah.
should say the mirror scene is my favorite scene of the episode. I really like that.
Oh, you mean when she does the pose?
No, I mean, the pose is whatever. It's more the confidence that she can look in the mirror with, which comes before the pose.
Yes, but I just like the whole sequence of all of it. It's I'm so confident I'm gonna do this and make myself like puff up my own chest and do that thing. Like I love that. You're right. It's one of the best things. But this scene is my favorite. The scene with the father.
Yeah,
on the roof.
He's out on the roof with her, and he says, "The reason your name's Kamala is because we were trying for so long. We didn't think we were going to have a second child, but then you did come. You were perfect," which Kamal means, I'm pretty sure, like excellence or perfection, something like that.
It means perfection in I think what? Oh God, which one's Urdu? But
no, Urdu it means marvel. So
right. So yeah,
Arabic.
Arabic, right? Means
but
perfect.
Basically,
like
yeah. He says in Urdu though, he lands on it means Marvel. So you've always been our Miss Marvel, and I think it's important that she hears that like it's not the superheroine that made you Miss Marvel. You were always to us, and we know how much her parents mean to her. To the people, so to an extent, to the people most important to you, you were always Miss Marvel because we didn't think we would be able to have you, and you're here. So I think that was just very nice that she was Miss Marvel all along, and it wasn't the actions of the show isn't what turned her into that. That was just these people who love her. She's always been that to them, which is a very nice feeling to have.
Yeah, I think this whole scene is just so absolutely beautiful because it's not only like that talk that he gives her the name and he says the title of the show in the show, and I love that every single time, but it's just like when she starts platforming away, which is like I complained about that last episode. I'm like, show it to us. I'm like, when they finally did, I was like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. This looks so much fun. It's the fact that as he's watching her go away, he's absolutely mesmerized by her, and that's a genuine response of like magic, pure magic. I'm like, oh God, he's awesome. This is such a supportive dad. I love him so much. He's a great character. That scene to me was like the best in the whole series. Well, this episode, I shouldn't say whole series, but this episode for free, like it did it. It was great.
The next scene is they're saying goodbye to Bruno. He took Kamran's car. I think he did just take it. I like that is in question. He's like, no, he gave it to me. We're friends. And they're like,
It's like, we
definitely
really
did.
bonded over the explosion, is what he
Definitely did
said. And I'm like, that was
but-
great.
So he says
true.
what I said earlier, which is I did some more testing because Amir
Yep.
thought like he might have powers, but he doesn't.
Mhm.
So clearly, it's not just the Bengal that did this to you, or
Yeah.
it's not just your lineage either that did this.
Yep.
Something different about you, like a mutation. I
It's just
didn't
the
hear it.
M word.
I didn't hear it the first time.
Da-na-na-na-na-na.
I had to see other people like talk about it. I'm like, oh wow, how did I miss that? But yeah, the much like when Professor X showed up in Multiverse
Yep.
of Madness, they play that amazing theme song.
Yes.
Uh,
The
and
amazing theme song.
Instead of being an Inhuman, Kamala Khan is definitely a mutant.
A mutant.
So that's nice for people.
Well, yeah. I mean, the whole internet is very upset about this. I quite frankly don't care. I think it's
Well, I
cool
think
because it
what's
makes a
more
lot of
important-
sense.
I think what's more important
Mhm.
for me for this show, not the MCU at large, but this
Yep.
show is Kamala's response of like, well, whatever it is, it's just another label. It doesn't matter. And
Exactly.
when we talked in the first episode about labels people put on you
Mhm.
as a Muslim American,
Mhm.
she's not concerned about that. She has had this experience where she's confident in herself. So
Mhm.
she's like, what it doesn't, that's, and I think most people who talk about it without being 100% angry about it are like, the most important part of Kamala isn't that she's Inhuman
Mhm.
from the comics. It's that you like her just as a person. And I think
Mhm.
the show makes you just like Kamala as a person, but the show definitely made Kamala like herself as a person. So she
Mhm.
doesn't need to like feel like, oh, mutant, what's that? Like she's just like, okay, great. I
Mhm.
was a Jinn before and now I'm a mutant. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm me. I'm Kamala Khan. I'm Ms. Marvel.
Mhm.
That's the important part. So I think while we talk about these shows that people really like Loki because Kang was at the end of it,
Mhm.
this big reveal, which is a big reveal, and I
It's-
think
yeah, big.
all the shows have given you big reveals. People just,
I agree.
I understand. We're like, oh, we're the Fantastic Four. How are they going to do mutants? This one is the mutants. Like
Yeah.
they said, it's just going to be people who were always mutants. I can't remember who talked about this. I was watching someone on YouTube,
Mhm.
and they were saying like, I think it was Nando V Movies, which
Mhm.
is there is a run in the comics where Captain America is like, oh yeah, there was this guy Lucky, he just kept healing, like it wasn't a thing, and you like that's Wolverine, but like
Mhm.
the idea was, yeah, there was always mutants. There wasn't like this big event that brought them in there. It's
Mhm.
just their powers manifested in a way where people were just like, huh, that's weird.
Right.
And it's like then they themselves are like, oh shit, I'm a mutant. Okay, that's what this is.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what they're gonna do here,
Mhm.
based on this Ms. Marvel reveal,
Mhm.
is that there's just gonna be a certain bunch of the not audience, population in the MCU that are just like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, that explains it. I'm a mutant.
Yeah, I might as well get tested.
Yeah,
So-
and I think they already. I feel like WandaVision already was like, clearly, Wanda is a mutant. She did
Mhm.
power stuff before she was tested on by Strucker.
Yeah,
That's what kept them alive.
because I've thought about this heavily, and I watched this episode twice, and I think about this like the aspect of, okay, are they trying to say that when Jinn and human have hybrid, like, breed, that's a mutation? Are they going to say that, okay, for example, it's people in the realms that are blessed with these things, like for example, Talo, if someone has like a regular person from the regular society goes to Talo and has a baby, is that baby going to be enhanced and all that kind of stuff? Is that the mutation they're talking about? There's that perspective, because they were very clear in talking about genealogy, like the actual science of it throughout this whole thing. And they built up Bruno to be so scientific, right? So to me, I'm like, is that one aspect of it? Is it just genuinely a mutation? Because to me, I rewatched this episode. I'm like, okay, what is her mutant power? It's embiggen, because literally no other clandestine can do that. They have the power of the Noor and they can do whatever, but her body and head physically gets bigger.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So her ability is basically to do what Ant-Man does when he goes Giant Man, but she can't control it yet. And that's fine. She keeps evolving and growing, and then she has the power to the Nor and the Bangle to assist with that and the platforming aspect, but she can get big as her mutant power. So to me, I'm like, okay, that's cool how they wrote that. I know why fans are angry about the fact that, okay, Namor's coming out in a little bit. He's supposed to be the first mutant. Why'd they take that away from him or something like that? There are people like that
takes that away from him.
That's what I think. I don't think it takes away at all, because I'm like, what they're saying, if you're right, in this YouTube person, like, they've all been around, because this makes sense to me. They've all been around, and now there's more, obviously, hero worship within the MCU. Like, you see a lot of the fans and all that kind of stuff. They know who these people are. They're celebrated. The A-Day celebration cosplay thing that Miss Marvel did, even itself, they're becoming celebrity status, right? So they're well-known people, and their lore is well established across the thing. Like, we look at the Ant-Man podcast and all that kind of stuff within its own universe, and they're getting bigger, right? So I think more and more people are going to just naturally be like, if there's a way to get superhero tested, and then that's when the mutants just kind of start coming together, as opposed to whatever. Because there's certain mutants that are like, yeah, that makes sense why no one would know about it. You'd probably hide in the woods and be a solo person if your skin was blue. Those things make sense to me. It's like, that's why we've never seen them, is because society's shit. Like, if if we watch the original X-Men show and you look at how Nightcrawler and Mystique episodes, where it's like, Mystique basically had to morph and assimilate and allow her child to be thrown into the river and get picked up by priests or whatever. But it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it makes sense for their own natural survival. They would just try to hide everything, right? We look at the opening scene of Archangel trying to shave off his wings during puberty, and you're like, holy shit, that's insane. But
agreed.
It
let's move
makes
on
sense
to the post credits.
Yeah. I don't understand why people are hurt about it.
I think they're just like, oh, it's not like in the comics.
Yeah, I know, and I'm tired of that argument. I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it.
I don't really care one way or the other. So
yeah,
I'm
just like, cool.
I didn't have it in me. As I said, the important part for me was that she was like, I don't care.
Yeah,
that she's past the like, ooh, what team am I on? Like, am I on the in crowd or whatever? She's like, I'm me, and that's good.
And I'm good enough, baby. And that is a great message. I love it. And here's the biggest thing for everyone else out there: stop complaining about this. You finally got your wish. Mutants and Fantastic Four are officially on the roadmap. So stop complaining. Stop being like, when's it going to happen? How's it going to happen? Is it going to be in WandaVision? No, it just happened already. Just deal with it. Deal with it.
And
people.
It was kind of in WandaVision when they showed that she had powers before she was tested on.
Yeah, they built upon that for sure. But now that's like, okay, it's confirmed. So I like how they're retconning that.
Yeah. I don't know if that was a retcon. But
I think it's a little bit of a retcon in the sense where if they're saying like, okay, there's events that could enhance this, like, oh, the Cosmic Cube enhanced her mutant ability, and like the Bangle and the
Nor you're saying
enhances...
the whole thing is a retcon. I thought you meant this one scene is a retcon.
No,
yes.
The whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing is a retcon. Yes. Yeah. So then the post-credit scene is Kamala in her room, and she swaps places with Carol Danvers.
Yep. They never meet.
I
thought they would.
I watched the like Disney cruise thing, and I'm like, oh, that's before I saw this episode.
Right.
There's like a thing with Ant-Man, Wasp, Falcon, well, not Falcon, Captain America, Ms. Marvel, and Captain Marvel. I'm like, damn it, they don't even meet in that. And I'm like, I just want her to be able to meet Carol Danvers. And then this post-credit scene happened. I'm like, she still doesn't get to meet Captain. I know they're saving it for the movie, but I'm just like, damn it. But yeah, that seems to be a thing from the comics with the Negabands. I don't know if they're committing to that, because obviously this was Bangle related, not Negaban related. But the concept, I think, is
it seems like they're using this as a stand-in for the Nega.
Rick Jones or whatever, who was like, he could swap places with Captain Marvel, which seems like a terrible. Like, I'm sure if you read it, it's cool, but I just, every time someone explains, I'm like, that just sounds so inconvenient and shit. I don't know why that would be a thing.
not
you'd
a
be
power.
happy to do. Like,
Yeah, that's
you
not
just
power.
swap
That's just
places.
an ability. That's just a really, really good ability to annoy someone.
Yeah. So yeah, so Carol switches places, and there we go.
And
People got their Carol Danvers appearance as well that
yeah,
they really wanted.
yeah, and it's very clear that this is actually Carol. She didn't turn into herself looking like Miss Marvel like they did things, because otherwise she wouldn't have been like, oh yeah, I'm in. She would have looked in the mirror and been like, what the fuck, as opposed to looking at a picture of herself and be like, where am I, kind of situation. So
Yeah.
it's a full-on swap situation. I love that people are theorizing that, oh, they're dedicating to like her looking like Miss Marvel in the. I'm like, no, that's not what's happening here whatsoever.
No.
I
It's
think
just
they're
a swap.
completely steering clear of that, and I think that's a good thing.
Agreed.
Yeah.
We already had that moment where
Yep.
like you got to see all the people dress up as Carol Danvers. This is
Yeah.
they swap places. So yeah, that's this episode. We spoiled
That's
it.
this series.
We should rate it.
Yep.
I would give this show an 8.
Yeah, I'm doing a 7.5 on this show.
Excellent.
This is great.
It's I think more shows like this that as I was alluding to, don't sacrifice the story of the character for a big reveal or a big villain everyone wanted to see. I think if you're going to do TV shows instead of movies, this is the medium to do character studies like this. I think this show is very successful.
Yeah,
and
because especially with the
definitely
final
my third
conflict.
favorite
Yeah.
of the Disney Plus
Ooh.
shows.
What goes before this for you?
For me, Falcon and Winter Soldier, which it is befuddling to me that people consistently put it at the bottom, which
Because people are
I won't-
not willing to engage with the material that's actually there and only wanting to complain.
I agree with you, and it's so disheartening every time you see people just dismiss an actual study of the Black experience.
Yep.
I think they're fine with this because it's uplifting. So it is. It's a Muslim American experience, but it's all happy stuff. Really, and it actually doesn't interrogate how white people contribute to the issues that a Black person or a Pakistani person, I think, and because they have Bruno and Zoe there to be good people, and I'm not saying they're shitty characters, I'm just saying this show seems more palatable for people, and they get the mutant reveal. But it's always shitty to watch the white content creators and some Black content creators put Falcon and the Winter Soldier at the bottom, because I think that show did something very special, and it's just another reminder of how people want to consume Black culture but not actually engage with it, or the humans that are at the center of that culture.
They want to humanize the people that
especially
produce
on
it.
their podcast where they're shitting on it, or their YouTube channel where they're shitting on the show, want to use terminology and stuff like that came from the people who they were showing suffered through that. But whatever, I think Falcon and Winter Soldier is my favorite so far. WandaVision is next. Ms. Marvel, I guess Loki would be next, then Moon Knight, then What If, then Hawkeye.
Gotcha.
Thank you very much for listening, everybody. We are part of the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows like Bad Game Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels. So please head on over there, thatshelf.com. You'll find our show, those shows, even more shows than I mentioned, and you'll have a good time. If you want to hear older episodes of our show, go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter is @tdfspoiled. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, a whole bunch of places. So please rate, review, subscribe, follow, share with your friends, really engage, and have a good day. Goodbye.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.